Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Podcast. I'm your host, Jetta, and today's episode is more than just special, it's personal. If you have been following the podcast for a while, you know I have a deep love for fantasy fiction. But today, I get to share something even more exciting. An author who has changed the way I read and imagine. Someone whose words have followed me through long nights, inspiring creativity, courage, and curiosity. She's a visionary, a New York Times best-selling author, and the brilliant mind behind one of the most captivating fantasy series in recent years, the Lightlight series. And yes, I'm talking about none other than Aster, the author of Lightlark, Nightbane, and the newly released Skyshade. Alex, welcome to Star Podcast. It is such a joy to have you here.
Thank you so much. That was one of the kindest introductions I ever received. I'm honored to be here and so excited to dive into the world of Light Dark with you.
It means a lot to me. Your stories have truly stayed with me. I actually pre-ordered Skyshade with my own allowance. And believe it or not, it arrived on my birthday. It felt like a gift from the universe.
Oh, that's so heartwarming. Stories like that mean everything to others. We put so much of ourselves into these books, and to know they land in moments like those, it just makes it all worth it.
And now I want to start with this part that started it all. Let's go back to where it all began. Lightlark. This book pulled me in instantly. Isla Crown is such a compelling character. At first, she seems fragile, but we quickly learn there's so much beneath the surface. When you created Isla, what did you want readers to feel?
Isla represents the struggle so many of us go through. The battle between who we are and who we pretend to be. I wanted her to start with underestimate. To others, and maybe even to herself, she appears weak. But gradually, she reveals an inner strength that isn't flashy. It's clever, it's strategic. I think her evolution reflects a quiet kind of power.
Oh, I love that. She's not your typical hero. She survives not through brute force, but through intellect and intuition. And of course, the world building is phenomenal. The 6 cursed realms, the deadly centennial, the Aurora Tower. Every detail felt alive. Did you always know Lightlark would be this expensive?
From the beginning, I wanted the world to feel immersive and mythic, almost like it had its own heartbeat. I kept notebooks of lore, sketches of each realm, even songs that fit the mood of each territory. I didn't want the readers to just imagine like that. I wanted them to live there.
And we absolutely did. One of my favorite aspects was the way each realm's curse mirrored its ruler's greatest fear. That added so much psychological depth.
Exactly. I believe fantasy works best when magic is symbolic. The curses aren't just obstacles, they are reflections of guilt, history, and legacy.
Let's continue with the deepening of darkness and Grimm's duality. Moving into Nightbane, things take a darker, more introspective turn. Isla is no longer just trying to survive. She is navigating betrayal, identity, and consequence. What was your approach going into this sequel?
Nightbane is the emotional core of the trilogy. In the first book, Isla was fighting the world. In the second, she is forced to face herself. I wanted the story to explore trust, especially self-trust. Who are you when everything you thought you knew unravels?
That absolutely came through. Her relationship with Grimm evolves. Sometimes tender, sometimes volatile. And Aura's presence grows even more layered. But what really intrigued me, especially after reading Skyshade, was how Grimm's feelings actually distorted his actions. He erased Isla's memory to protect her, to stay with her. But in doing so, he manipulated her. That revelation completely changed how I viewed his character.
Yes, Grimm is a tragic figure in many ways. His love is overwhelming, consuming, and it leads him to make choices that are deeply flawed. In his mind, everything is justified if it means keeping Isla safe and by his side. But love without trust, that becomes control. And readers, like Isla, are forced to evaluate whether his intentions excuse his actions.
Exactly. When he wiped her memory, orchestrated the competition so she would meet him again, pretending it was their first meeting, that shattered my trust in him. And yet, when I read that scene on page 4 and 5 in Skyshade, where he says, "If loving you this much is my downfall, then consider me already on my knees." It just hurt because you can see how much he's suffering, how terrified he is of losing her.
Grimm is the embodiment of love as weakness. He fears losing her so deeply that he commits unforgivable acts. But in those moments of confusion, when his voice breaks, or he says he will choose her over the world every single time, you realize he's not evil, he's broken.
Moving on to the transformation, betrayal and emotional awakening in Skyshade. So much of Skyshade revolves around Isla reclaiming her story. And part of that is facing what Grimm did to her. Not out of hatred, but out of obsession. How did you navigate that emotional complexity in your writing?
It was a balancing act. I want readers to feel conflicted. Grimm isn't a villain in the traditional sense, but his actions caused real harm. For Isla, the battery wasn't just about secrets. It was about autonomy. She had to rebuild her sense of self from ground up. And I think that's why Skyshade is so raw.
Yes, especially the way Isla begins to understand that love without honesty is just another form of manipulation. It was powerful to see her hold Grimm accountable while still acknowledging the complicated love between them. There is also the political complexity in Skyshade. Isla isn't just reclaiming herself, she is also learning how to lead. How did you balance her emotional journey with her growing responsibility as a ruler?
That's such a good question. For me, leadership in Skyshade had to come from vulnerability. Isla doesn't suddenly become powerful in the traditional sense. Her strength lies in her ability to admit when she's wrong, to listen and to make her choice. Grimm's betrayal shakes her, but she doesn't let it define her. She uses that pain as a fuel to lead with clarity.
I also noticed how much of Skyshade is about legacy. What kind of world Isla wants to leave behind? There's this moment where she says something like, "If the only way to lead is to hurt people, then I don't want the crown." That line hit me so hard.
Yes, there was a defining moment for Isla. She realized that real power isn't control or fear. It's compassion and choosing not to repeat the mistakes of those who came before. That's what sets her apart.
And yet, even as she finds herself, the grief is still there. The grief of what Grimm could have been. The grief of what she lost. Was that important for you to show?
Absolutely. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. Isla has to carry those losses with her. She doesn't become whole by ignoring them, but by learning how to live alongside them. That's something I think many readers can relate to, especially young people trying to make sense of love, betrayal, and growth all at once.
I also want to talk about your style, especially in Skyshade. It feels more poetic, more symbolic. Shadows, blood, rain. They aren't just descriptions. They reflect Isla's emotional state. Was that intentional?
Very much so. This book is Isla's rebirth. Every metaphor, every image had to speak to her internal transformation. I wanted readers to feel the storm inside her, not just witness it.
It worked. As a reader, I found myself pausing and rereading sentences just to let them sink in. Especially in those moments when Isla reflects on what Grim has done and still mourns what they could have been. Then there is style, symbolism, and reader impact. Let's dive a bit more into your writing style. One thing that stood out to me, especially in Skyshade, was the lyrical and visual quality of your prose. It's vivid and emotional. Do you approach writing as a visual experience first, or does emotion guide the imagery?
It's a bit of both, honestly. I tend to see scenes in my head like movie moments, but what makes me stop and write are the emotions. I always ask myself, what is this character feeling? And how can that be reflected in the environment, the weather, even the way a sentence is structured? For example, if Isla is drowning emotionally, the language might become fragmented or more fluid.
That makes sense. I remember reading a scene where Isla is in total despair, and even the rhythm of your writing changes. It almost feels breathless. It's something I've never quite experienced in fantasy writing before.
Thank you. That means a lot. I believe fantasy should be immersive not just in its word building, but in the way it makes you feel. It should reach beyond escapism and really echo something inside the reader.
And it absolutely does. Let's talk about your use of symbolism. In Skyshade, shadows, rain, light, even blood, they all seem to act like metaphors. What do these recurring images mean to you?
Each of those elements carries weight in Isla's journey. Shadows represent the parts of herself she is afraid to face. Rain is grief and cleansing at once. Blood is legacy, guilt, sacrifice. Light, when it finally comes, means something because it was earned. I didn't want the imagery to be decorative. I wanted it to be narrative.
That intentional layering adds so much depth. One scene that really stayed with me was when Isla stands in the ruins of Battlefield, and everything is quiet, except the rain. No words, no dialogue, just atmosphere. It was haunting.
Those quiet moments matter. Sometimes silence speaks more than dialogue. That's when the reader is alone with the character's pain, and that's incredibly powerful.
Final question on style. Your narration mixes close third person with emotionally intimate language. How do you strike that balance between narrative distance and emotional closeness?
Great question. I wanted the reader to feel like they were inside Isla's skin, but also able to see the bigger picture. It's tricky, but I play with sentence structure, pacing, and internal monologue to walk that line. Readers shouldn't just know what Isla feels, they should feel it too.
Lastly, let's talk about character connections, personal insight, and final reflections. Before we wrap up, I have a few final questions that reflect on the heart of the trilogy, its emotional weight, the characters you brought to life, and what it all ultimately means. So let me ask first. If there's one thing you hope readers take away from this trilogy, what would it be?
That power and love both require responsibility. Whether it's ruling a realm or loving someone, you have to be honest with yourself and with others. Isla's journey is about reclaiming power, but also choosing who she wants to be, even when the people she loves make it hard. I want readers to see that their choices, even quiet ones, have power. More than anything, I hope readers walk away knowing they don't have to be perfect to be powerful. Growth is messy. Healing isn't linear. Sometimes we make mistakes out of fear, like Grimm. Sometimes we rise despite heartbreak, like Isla. I wanted this trilogy to remind people, especially young readers, that strength comes in many forms and that self-worth should never be dependent on someone else's love or validation.
That's such a meaningful message. And speaking of characters, if you had to pick just one character from your trilogy, who surprised you the most while writing? Who would it be?
Oro. I had a plan for him from the beginning, but as the story evolved, so did he. He was supposed to be the reserved royal contrast to Grimm's fire, but he became so much more. His quiet grief, his dedication, his ability to forgive, it all developed naturally as I got to know him better. By Skyshade, I realized he was one of the most emotionally complex characters in the entire series.
He definitely surprised me too. And in a way, his growth reflected Isla's own internal conflict. Duty versus desire, control versus surrender. The more I think about it, the more I see how each major character embodies a question Isla has to ask herself.
Absolutely. The story isn't just about Isla. It's about the echoes of herself she finds in others. Grimm, Oro, Celeste, even the cursed rulers. Each of them shows her what she could become, what she could resist, or what she might lose.
Alex, thank you. Not just for joining the show, but for the world you've given us. Your work has meant more to me than I can express. And I know many listeners feel the same. To everyone tuning in, thank you for sharing this time with us. If you haven't yet read Skyshade, now is the time. And as Keating once said, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. So go write yours. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep reading, and keep shining.